Welcome back. It's another Wednesday, another episode of Mateina. I'm your host. I am your host. Now that I can get it out. I'm your host, Thomas, and I'm delighted that you guys are here. But since I already have difficulties pronouncing and talking about things, I'm gonna have a sip of mate real quick. And today, and this is a premiere, because this is the first time I'm actually sipping the yerba that we're going to review today. La Mulata from Argentina. La Mulata, very interesting brand from Argentina. There's some interesting facts that are different from the major brands such as Syria, Rosamonte, Cruz de Malta, and so on. So stay tuned, because the distribution, especially the distribution of La Mulata, is different than from the other ones. And then we're looking into the history, and this is where we're going way back, way back in history, and look at how yerba mate and the mate culture ended up in Syria, Lebanon, and in that region of the world. Jam-packed episode again. I'm Thomas, and as you already know, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're on Instagram, Somos Mateina, and it would be lovely if you would visit our store. It's been online and it's been live for about a week. SomosMateina.com. We ship worldwide. We have gourds, we have bombichas, we have stickers, we have accessories such as thermoses. We've got the entire palette that you probably want as a mate lover. So check us out, SomosMateina.com. And with that, I would say we're starting this episode with the deep dive into La Mulata yerba. So my friends, La Mulata yerba, let's look at it. What is it? Where does it come from? What does it do? Is it magic? No, it's not magic. It's a brand from Argentina. But the leaves come mainly from Brazil. Yes, from Brazil. Because La Mulata is a typical Uruguayan yerba. So if you're not confused by now, let me explain this to you a little bit further. La Mulata is the brand in Argentina, right? There is big Argentinian producers like Taragüí, Rosamonte, Cruz de Malta, and so on. La Mulata is more of a small producer that has a tighter connection to the export and distribution throughout South America and mainly European markets. So La Mulata is not this big corporation, if you will. It's local, it's small, and it is, and this is where Uruguay comes in, it is a typical Tipo PU1, type PU1 yerba. What does that stand for? Padrón Uruguayo Uno, which pretty much defines every Uruguayan yerba. And most Uruguayan yerbas, as you as a mate expert already know, come from Brazil. So here we have it. Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. And Tipo PU1 defines that typical Uruguayan yerba, which means it's finely cut, it has high dust content, and normally less than 10% stem content. It is the most popular cut in Uruguay, and it offers a very intense and long-lasting, often smoky flavor. So I would say it's the Scotch of the yerbas. Scotch of yerbas. Now let's look at the brand's name and the packaging, because La Mulata sticks to the term. It has a woman on it with a darker complexion, which is a direct referencing to the term mulata. And it has a rather old-fashioned packaging. There is no fancy stuff on it. It's very straightforward. You have that woman on there. You have a blue package, for example. Very limited writing on it. And one interesting fact, it indicates that it comes from Brazil. Makes sense because, as we already know, the yerba grows in Brazil. And that's also not very uncommon because look at your Canarios package if you have one at home. Uruguayan-style, but Brazilian made. So yeah, there you have it. There's also an unrelated Spanish company called La Mulata that began as a family-run spice and Argentine product importer at Coruña in Spain. And the company helped popularize brands like Cruz de Malta locally and expanded into other imported goods. But the ties to the mate brand, La Mulata itself, is nothing more than maybe a distribution deal rather than it does have anything to do with the production. So in summary, La Mulata as a yerba brand is typically understood as a Uruguayan-style mate or yerba product that is sourced in Brazil and sold mainly overseas, especially in European markets. And it has stamina. Yeah, it is strong. So let's look into a little bit more what Uruguayan-style mate is and what people really mean by Uruguayan-style, since La Mulata is a Uruguayan-style yerba. And as you probably already know, Uruguayan mate is traditionally finely cut. It's minimal stems and powder. It's unlike the typical Argentine yerbas that are considered the con palo ones with stem, which has larger leaves, or the Brazilian chimarrão, which can be very green and powdery. The Uruguayan one is sort of something in between almost. It has a strong mousse and consistent brew, and it's prepared like a typical mate, and it's shared in circles rather than sipped alone. But these days, maybe you sip it alone while you have a business meeting digitally. La Mulata traditional PU1, and then there is the La Mulata Suave. It's also a PU1, typical Uruguayan yerba, strong. Both of them are strong. The Suave is considered a little bit milder, but it is still the typical Uruguayan yerba that is intense in flavor. And Uruguayan-style products like La Mulata, they commonly grow in southern Brazil in the region of the Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná. With a plant, do you know what the mate plant is called? Yes? No? Leave a comment. Let me know what it is called. I'm not gonna say it now. It starts with I and ends with iensis. And those areas are where that plant thrives. It is typically harvested between April and September during the cooler months to maximize the leaf quality. Don't forget, all the countries below the equator, July, August is winter time. This is not the summer. So for the Uruguayan-style mate, processing usually involves flash drying, milling into really, really finely cut textures, and packaging with minimal stems. As I said, normally as a max of 10% of stems in there. And then obviously the well-known dust. And it delivers a balanced strength without the heavy bitterness or roughness that you find in larger stem blends. However, it is worth noting that Mulata's products are not widely promoted by a single production company that documents planting, oxidative drying methods, or aging. And this is really where the big difference comes in. Because the majority of the brands, they do everything from harvesting to distribution. La Mulata doesn't do that. They have their own little harvesting plants. They harvest it, they get it ready with drying, milling, cutting, and so on. And then it goes to the distribution, and distributing it do other companies for them. So, that said, the quality that La Mulata offers is, in my opinion, it's decent. It's not on the high end like Canarias, for example, but it's also not on the lower end. So it's a good, mediocre Uruguayan yerba. And I think this is because it does not do its own quality checks. It pretty much hands over the yerba to the distribution companies, and then they distribute it. So it really depends on the pack that you receive. You might be in for a treat because you got the best part of the yerba, or a big disappointment if the distribution company didn't work properly on the product. And this, my dear listeners, is the big difference between La Mulata and the majority of mate brands. Yeah, quality matters, because a good yerba mate, good quality mate, is something that lasts you long. You can sip on it for hours and enjoy it, relax, or get the energy kick that you need. Or, as you already know, it has an attribute, a very interesting attribute, and it's these days compared a lot to Ozempic, because it's a hunger suppressant. And those attributes come in because of the theophylline and the theobromine. So yes, it suppresses hunger, but it's a healthy option. And you don't need a prescription for it. You just go on somosmatina.com, get your package, you'll get it shipped, and it will be with you within a few business days, depending on where you live. So back to La Mulata. Yeah, where we know where it comes from. We know the consistency. We know what it does. We know there is a traditional, so the tradicional and the suave. That's very similar in cut, but in terms of flavor, the suave, as the name said, is a little bit more smoother. The color expression is a little bit more greener. It's more of like the traditional leaf. Both come in two types of packages, 500 grams and 1 kilo. And the brand, as we've heard already, is often distributed internationally rather than domestically. A lot of the La Mulata packages go to Europe, to the United States, and to the rest of the world. And it can be found in special tea shops and Latin American stores, or also in online stores. Whereas the larger brands you might find in your Publix in Florida, or Costco, or wherever you go and get your groceries from. Yeah, La Mulata. So how would I summarize La Mulata, or everything that we've heard so far? It's a small brand. It comes from Argentina. The brand comes from Argentina. The leaves, however, come from Brazil, like so many other Uruguayan mates, and it's considered a PU1 yerba, which is the typical Uruguayan yerba with its noticeable intensity. And it's mainly distributed throughout the world rather than being consumed in South America, Brazil, Uruguay, or Argentina. Flavor profile. and drinking experience. We've talked a little bit about it already in terms of quality. The taste is less aggressive and bitter, it's more approachable, it's clean, it's very neutral, it's earthy, it's bold, it's smoky, it's high intensity. It's the typical mate from Uruguay. Maybe you can also compare it a little bit to Canarias or Taragui, but the baseline is it's not as high in quality as Canarias is, for example. And that has something to do with the quality control, in my opinion, because it is being distributed through different channels, through different distributors, and does not go through their own quality checks. I think this should give you a good understanding of the underdog status here. You cannot find it everywhere, but it's familiar enough to have a recognizable identity among people who explore beyond Argentinian brands, especially when you look at the branding, which in my opinion is a work of art. It's simplicity with that Mulata woman on there. Perfect, easy to spot. A decent yerba. So what are the final thoughts on it? It's neither a household brand in South America, nor it is completely obscure niche product. But instead, it sits somewhere in the middle, familiar to people who explore Uruguayan-style mate beyond the mainstream brands like Canarias. And it's heavily available in the international markets as a reliable, everyday option. But for many drinkers, especially those new to Uruguayan cuts, La Mulata is a solid gateway into that style of mate. It's approachable, it's not mild, but it's also not too wild, not too weak. It's just a great, steady drink. So my friends, keep exploring, keep sipping, and win mate. So what do you think of La Mulata? Have you tried it? Which one, the Suave or the Tradicional? Do you like it? What do you like? Don't you like it? Why not? How would you drink it? It's not typical for a tereré, but have you ever tried it as a tereré? Is it bad as a tereré? I have it here. I've been sipping on it for some time now. I must say I also recently discovered this brand, and that reminds me to take another sip. Of my La Mulata Tradicional. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, as Larry David would say. But let's move on, because we still have a big topic ahead of us, and that is how in the world did Syria and the Arab world end up with yerba mate? In order to understand that, we have to go back, way back, and look at the story that connects human migration, colonial history, trade routes, identity, and shared rituals. And by the end of this episode, my dear friends, you'll understand how mate, which was a native or is a native drink to the Guarani people of South America, ended up being sipped in cafés in the Mediterranean coast and living rooms and in so many other places in the Arab world, especially in Syria. Let's start this journey. As we all know, yerba mate comes from the leaves of the tree called... Do you know? I'm saying it now. Ilex paraguayensis. It's native to the subtropical forests of Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, and Uruguay, especially in the region around the Iguazu Falls, where the three countries share a border, because the indigenous people, they live there, and they were the first to start drinking it. So for them, mate was more than a beverage. It was a source of energy, had medicinal functions, and it was also a social connector. The European colonizers and the Jesuit missionaries, they encountered mate in the 16th and 17th century and documented its use and helped spread its cultivation throughout what is now northern Argentina, Paraguay, southern Brazil, and Uruguay, the Iguazu Falls area. And Argentina eventually became the world's main producer, exporter of mate, with tens of millions of kilograms shipped abroad each year. But while mate remained deeply ingrained in the South American culture, its story would travel. And it traveled back and forth, as we'll hear in a second, throughout the world and also throughout the Arab world. Lebanon, Syria, and so on. So what was the key to mate's journey to the Middle East? And it does not begin with trade. So it was not just packaged and shipped to Syria. It began with migration. Because between the mid-19th century and the early 20th century, hundreds of thousands of people from modern-day Syria and Lebanon, that was part of the Ottoman Empire, emigrated to South America. And they were escaping economic hardships, conscription into imperial armies, political instability, you name it. And Argentina and Brazil had a booming economy at that time, and also had a labor demand that became magnets for migrants seeking opportunities. So in Argentina and Brazil, these immigrants encountered local customs and food, and amongst them was mate. And many adopted the drink as part of their daily life. They started drinking it with the local workers, neighbors, and learning the social rituals surrounded it. They shared a gourd and just bonded over it. Because it wasn't just a beverage, as we know. It wasn't a beverage just then, and it's not a beverage just now. It is more than that. And it was shared during work breaks. So some immigrants quickly embraced mate and loved it, loved the energy kick, loved the strength of it, loved the taste of it, and became part of their daily life. It became something comforting. And this is obviously where the story really flips. How did it end up in Syria then? Well, many migrants stayed in South America permanently. A significant number eventually returned home, especially after the First World War and during other periods of relative economic opportunities back in their countries and back in that area. So when they did, they didn't return empty-handed because, who would want to come back without any present? So they brought bags of yerba mate, metal straws, to practice the sharing and the passion with it. So some families arrived in the coastal towns of Latakia and Tartus, brought mate in large quantities, like literally in sacks full of leaves, and introduced it to relatives, neighbors who they've never seen that before because it doesn't grow there. Yeah? I mean, imagine you haven't seen your relative in a while and he comes back with 100 pounds of mate sack and says, hey, my friend, I've been abroad for some time. You should try and drink this. This is really good. What would you say? But according to historical accounts, this is how mate was introduced to Syria in the period between 1920s and the 1960s, when the migrant workers came back across the Atlantic and introduced mate and yerba to their families. Yeah, isn't that a beautiful story? Came as a present, and it stayed as a ritual. But what's remarkable is that the Syrians and the Lebanese didn't just adopt mate, they adapted it. Because unlike in Argentina, where mate is typically served in a large calabash gourd to be shared among people, in Syria and Lebanon, mate is often enjoyed individually. People drink it out of those small glass cups. I'm sure you've seen them. They're typical in that region. They're reminiscent of tea glasses. And each person usually has its own serving instead of passing a gourd around. And also in many Syrian communities, mate drinking became woven into social life, especially late night gatherings, conversations, and occasions that resemble some of the communal vibes it's like hookah or shisha has. Friends, families get around, they poured hot water. Well, you know the temperature by now, around 170 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit or around 75 degrees Celsius. And it's that grassy infusion was sipped through bombillas, which they also brought with them, which is, for the lack of a better term, a metal straw that has a filter in the bottom. So what began as a South American ritual morphed into something that millions of Syrians view even up to this day as their drink, to the point where some people mistakenly will tell you that mate's origin is local rather than imported. But it's not. It's not, but it has such a strong connection to the culture there now that, yeah, someone might believe that. And then the adoption grew as the commercial demand did. So by the latter half of the 20th century, importation became organized. Instead of just buying small amounts brought by returning families, bulk shipments of yerba from Argentina became the regular. And in the early 2000s and 2010s, Argentina exported massive quantities of yerba to Syria, making it the single largest importer of Argentine mate in the world at those times, accounting for tens of thousands of tons per year. So just to look at an example, during one reported year, Syria imported over 15,000 tons of mate from Argentina alone, just from one country, representing the vast majority of Argentina's export. 15,000 tons to just one country. So by 2019, official export figures showed that Syria purchased more than 30 million kilograms of yerba mate from Argentina. It's around 3/4 of the country's total exports. And it's not just limited to Argentina. Paraguay, which is known for tereré, is also expanding exports to the Arab world, including Syria, Lebanon, and other countries in that region, because Paraguay's yerba reaches markets across 27 countries, with Arab consumers showing strong interest in the beverage and its related accessories. Yeah, so why did it take roots there? And I think there's a few factors that play a role in it, why it was and is still so embraced enthusiastically in this part of the world. So the first one, mate filled a niche that was culturally compatible, I think. Much like Arabic tea culture, where tea served through the day in social settings, mate fit naturally into those existing habits of hospitality and communal drinking. It didn't replace tea entirely, of course, but it became another beloved infusion. And the second one is mate's stimulating properties. So it contains caffeine, has antioxidants, made it appealing as an alternative to traditional teas and coffee. It's refreshing, warming in colder climates, and energizing for daily routines. So if you need your little kick, then go and get your yerba and sip on it. And third, the migration, obviously, because it created personal ties. Families returning from South America didn't just bring mate, they brought stories, rituals, memories associated with all of that. Yerba. I mean, do you remember when you had your first sip of yerba? Who did you have it with? Was it good? Did you like it? Did it take you a few sips to like it? Did you take a few gourds to like it? A few times maybe? But you probably won't forget the first time, right? So over generations, these memories became just cultural norms. In cities and villages across Syria, you'll find mate served in homes, workplaces, cafes, and even in the military. In some communities, it's considered so integral that signaling someone to sit and have mate is akin to inviting them into a personal world. And I've heard that mate in Syria is also often drank with a shot of milk. Is that true? Are there any people listening from Syria or are Syrian and know mate, have had mate? Let me know how it is being consumed there. And in Syria today, mate is consumed with its own local variations. Some people add herbs, rosemary, ginger, laurel, or lemon, just reflecting the local taste preferences. Rather than a heavy South American mate ritual with multiple refills from the same gourd, many Syrians prepare mate in smaller cups and refill as needed. Mate is present at breakfast, at lunch, at dinners, in the afternoon, in the evening. In rural communities, during olive harvests or seasonal fieldwork, mate accompanies breaks and rest periods just like it does in South America. It even plays a role in pop culture. It appears on television and social media and as a symbol of comfort during stressful times, including wartime and displacement due to conflict. Yeah, we talked about Syria a lot, but we also have other countries that consume mate. It has spread throughout Syria and then beyond its borders to countries such as Jordan, Kuwait, and a lot of other parts of the Gulf. You can see the growth in mate consumption, which is mainly driven by the Syrian and the Lebanese culture. Dubai, for example. Yeah, I don't think we have listeners from Dubai yet, but if you know if mate is consumed in Dubai and how it is consumed, it's the classic way in cans or the way Syrians drink it, let me know. Leave a comment. Go on Somos Mateina on our Instagram. Let us know. Or you can also review yerba on somosmateina.com on our store. Mate as an identity. Mate in Syria. Mate in Lebanon. So perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this cross-continental adoption is how deeply mate has woven into the identity of many Syrians and Arabs. In parts of Syria, especially in the coastal regions of Latakia, Tartus, and the Qualamun Mountains, mate is nearly as popular as Argentina. Some people there say mate is an everyday drink for work and conversations, and some they just have it with their families to relax. And because mate became a constant through decades of ups and downs, including the unfortunate wars and displacement and economic hardships that come with all of that, it often represents comfort, continuity, and connection to community. So what are the final thoughts of this story? The story of yerba mate in Syria and in the wider Arab world, and its cultural migration that caused, and I'm air quoting, caused this beautiful drink to end up in that region. Because what began as an indigenous beverage in South America became part of the Arabic daily life through a complex web of migration, memory, adaptation, commerce, and cultural acceptance. Mate didn't just arrive in the Middle East. It resonated with social rituals already present there. Over generations, it established itself. It established roots so deep that many people now assume mate is a local drink or tradition, rather than a drink whose journey spans continents and centuries. From returning migrants to bustling markets in Damascus and Latakia, mate has become more than an imported drink. It has become part of the identity, the comfort, and the everyday life of the people in the Middle East. Yeah, that's a beautiful story. What migration can do to a simple drink as yerba mate. Gotta take a sip of it because it's inspiring. Have you ever been to a country, maybe you've traveled to South America if you're not from there, spent some time in Argentina and Uruguay or Brazil, Have you ever started your mate journey there? Or did you start it there? Or have you never been there? So how did your mate journey start? I would really like to know. And if you want to tell me your story, there's always an empty chair right next to me in our podcast studio. We can do this in person or online, but I would really love to hear your mate story, because I think it inspires people. It is something that you connect with people. Mate as a drink is great, but mate as a connector, as something that makes people bond over, is even more beautiful. And with that said, we have come to the end of our episode today, in which we introduced La Mulata, the tiny little brother of the big Uruguayan yerbas, as well as the story on how yerba ended up in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, in the Middle East in general. Yeah, my dear friends, sad moment. It's the end of this episode, but as you know, there's many more Wednesdays to come. There's many more episodes to come, and if you want to be on my show, as I said, tell your story, anything that relates back to mate, reach out to us, send me a message on Instagram, and we'll talk about it on the show. I want to say thanks for listening. It has been a pleasure, as always. And next week, Wednesday, we're going to review a new yerba in the Yerba of the Week review, and we'll have another exciting topic. So tune in next week, Wednesday, and listen to our podcast, Mateina. Follow us on Instagram, Somos Mateina. Or if you're looking for your new gourds for yerba, for anything mate, go to our store, www.somosmateina.com, and get your gear. We ship all over the world. Within a few business days, your mate present will arrive. Thanks again for listening. I'm your host, Thomas, and this was Mateina, powered by Somos Mateina. And don't forget, el café es para mortales, el mate para leyendas.